On April 2, 2020, President Trump came under intense scrutiny for his administration's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Critics lambasted Trump's hesitant approach to implement nationwide measures, pointing out his initial downplaying of the virus, followed by a sudden shift to alarmist messages. This inconsistent messaging, many argued, increased public confusion and anxiety, thereby further destabilizing efforts to curb the outbreak. Among the most notable instances of this fluctuating communication was Trump's early assertion that the virus was under control and would disappear, only to subsequently declare a national state of emergency. Similarly, his mixed messages regarding the use of masks created a sense of uncertainty among the public about the seriousness and nature of the threat posed by the virus. Critics further censured the Trump administration for its failure to adequately prepare for and respond to the crisis, asserting that complications like the shortages of test kits and personal protective equipment could have been avoided with more foresight. Retrospective analysis has suggested that early containment measures, such as a more timely implementation of testing and quarantine procedures, could have significantly mitigated the severity of the pandemic. This has underscored the crucial importance of proactive and consistent measures in managing public health emergencies, and served as a stark reminder of the potential cost of inaction and inconsistency in the face of global crises. On April 2, 2020, the Trump administration announced the ambitious Opening Up America Again plan, a comprehensive set of guidelines designed to initiate a gradual relaxation of social distancing measures that had been put in place to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. These guidelines were not mandates but rather suggestions, with the administration opting to entrust the decisions primarily to individual states, respecting the federal structure of the country. The plan consisted of 3 detailed phases, each with criteria involving a downward trajectory of documented cases or positive tests. Phase 1 maintained strict guidelines, though it did allow for a return of some workers to their jobs under certain conditions. Phase 2 called for a further easing of restrictions, permitting schools, bars, and gyms to open with diminished occupancy. The final phase was a return to a semblance of normalcy, with vulnerable individuals allowed to resume public interactions and workplaces operating without restrictions. However, the response to the plan was far from uniform across the states. While some lauded the initiative for its flexible, state-driven approach, others argued it lacked the stringent oversight needed to prevent further spread of the virus. States with lower case numbers were more inclined to follow the guidelines, whereas harder-hit states were more hesitant, preferring to prioritize public health over economic reopening. Critics of the plan voiced several concerns. They contended a decentralized approach could potentially prolong the pandemic's duration, with the virus continuing to circulate unchecked in some areas due to inconsistent enforcement of guidelines. They also pointed out that the plan's economic impact could be more devastating in the long run, as a potential resurgence of the virus could necessitate the reimposition of restrictions. The varying responses among states and the patchwork enforcement of guidelines underscored the challenges of balancing out economic recovery with public health considerations. It highlighted the struggle to achieve an equilibrium, a testament to the complexity of the situation, where each decision carries both significant promise and risk. On April 2, 2020, President Trump signed into law the historic $2 trillion CARES Act, or the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, as an urgent measure to shield the economy from the devastating effects of the pandemic. This monumental legislation carried provisions offering a lifeline to a range of stakeholders. For individuals, the act provided for direct economic impact payments. This essentially meant cash assistance to individuals and families, with most adults receiving $1,200 and an additional $500 for each qualifying child. This provision was designed to alleviate the financial hardship caused by the pandemic, allowing people to cover their basic needs. In terms of unemployment benefits, the CARES Act expanded the eligibility criteria and increased the amount of benefits. The legislation introduced a $600 per week federal pandemic unemployment compensation payment to all recipients of state unemployment benefits and extended unemployment benefits to self-employed individuals, gig workers, and those who previously wouldn't qualify. Financial assistance was extended not just to individuals but also to businesses and healthcare providers. For businesses, the CARES Act ushered in a host of relief options, including the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, which provided forgivable loans to small businesses to keep their employees on payroll. For healthcare providers, a $100 billion fund was created to keep health systems afloat amid the surging costs of managing the pandemic. There's no denying that the CARES Act had a profound, stabilizing impact on the economy during a time of unprecedented economic upheaval. By pumping money directly into the hands of individuals and businesses, it allowed for an injection of liquidity into the economy. It functioned as a bridge, allowing enterprises to stay afloat and individuals to meet their immediate needs while the economy navigated the uncharted territories of the pandemic. However, despite its remarkable role in softening the economic blow, the Act also highlighted the need for more efficient and equitable distribution mechanisms to address the economic crises effectively. On April 2, 2020, the Trump administration announced an exhaustive expansion of travel restrictions, aiming to curb the rampant spread of COVID-19. In an attempt to limit imported cases, the travel embargo was broadened beyond its initial scope to encapsulate additional countries that were grappling with severe outbreaks. Countries like Italy, Spain, China, and Iran, amongst others, were placed under these travel restrictions in an effort to control the global spread of the virus. The ultimate objective of these restrictions was twofold. Firstly, to delay the introduction of new variations of the virus into the U.S., thus providing the healthcare system with much-needed time to adequately prepare and respond. Secondly, protect the citizens of the country from exposure to the virus by minimizing international travel. However, these travel restrictions weren't without criticism. Concerns were raised about their enforcement and effectiveness, with critics arguing that the measures were reactionary rather than preventative. Some suggested that a more robust domestic response, including widespread testing and contact tracing, might have been more effective curbing the virus. There were also concerns about the potential for racial profiling and discrimination in the enforcement of these travel restrictions. The impact on global connectivity was immense and immediate. With borders closed and flights grounded, international trade, tourism, cultural exchange, and diplomatic relations were all severely affected. The restrictions underscored the delicate balance between protecting public health and maintaining our interconnected world, prompting a global conversation about the future of travel in a post-COVID world. On April 2, 2020, in an unprecedented move, President Trump asserted federal authority over states' responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. This assertion was not met without resistance, as it sparked significant legal and political debates. The crux of the issue lay in the interpretation of the division of powers in the Constitution, particularly during periods of emergency. President Trump's move to assert unilateral authority, the complexities of federalism, into sharp relief. Federalism, a constitutional framework where power is divided between a central government and individual states, was put to the test. The debate was twofold. On one hand, there were those who argued that federal authority should step in to ensure a unified national response to the pandemic. On the other, state rights advocates asserted that individual states should maintain autonomy to tailor their responses based on local need. However, amidst this contentious debate, one fact remained undisputed: the importance of cooperative efforts in effectively addressing public health emergencies. Regardless of federal or state powers, without cooperation and coordination, the nation's response to such emergencies can be significantly hindered. The COVID-19 pandemic underscored the crucial need for all levels of government to work together to protect public health and safety.